leaders from around the world. I want to thank Prime Minister Starmer for his words of inspiration and strength of resolve, and for being with us at the Global Progress Action Conference. And of course, it's my great honor to welcome Prime Ministers Mark Carney of Canada, Anthony Albanese of Australia, and Kristrún Frostadóttir of Finland. Iceland. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh my God, it's so embarrassing. I'm thrilled to join you all for this conversation. We're living, and this is a really crucial moment because we are living in a new political moment. And as we all face rising authoritarianism and essentially significant disruption under the guise of change, we have leaders here who are addressing the challenges of their countries, people who are addressing the economic insecurities, addressing basic needs, meeting the moment without inducing fear, but inducing hope. And so as we face these challenges, we're thrilled to have these leaders here. And I'll just get right into the questions. Your respective electoral and policy victories. We have leaders here assembled who've all won election in the last year and a half. These have been points of inspiration for the progressive movement, for center-left parties, and for really democracy defenders around the world. And I'd love for you to share with us, how your messages, how that resonated, and how you are meeting the needs of your constituencies, people who are deeply concerned with cost of living and other issues. Mark Carney, please take it away. Mr. Prime Minister.
I see, that was introduction, discuss. Okay, so I will go. Thank you, Neera. Thank you. This is fantastic to be at this gathering. So maybe I'll frame it a bit this way, which is our election and what Canadians were feeling, like in many electorates, but in a slightly different way, is a sense of loss of control. That's what happens when inflation is too high. That's what happens when there is a sense that migration isn't being adequately managed. It's also what happened, and the most sharp version of this was, of course, the tariff relationship with the United States, when all of a sudden our largest trading partner was fundamentally changing the relationship. So our election and our policy was first and foremost, it was fight the tariffs, have a reaction. We had one of the strongest reactions. Protect our workers. So there were many ways we were doing that, but one of the things is we were taking all of the tariff revenue, putting it back into workers, helping workers retain their jobs, but also retrain, protect our communities against crime. But the core, the core message was build. And it was to build in a positive way. You need a positive agenda, and it matters how we build. And I'll just leave you with a couple of core messages that ground our approach in the election, but very much in governing. First and foremost, we can give ourselves more than any foreign government can take away. So our ability to have one Canadian economy, we have a bunch of internal trade barriers. We're removing all of those. Our ability to build for the future new trade corridors, clean energy, artificial intelligence, diversify with partners, all of that is much greater than what could be taken away, even in the worst tariff scenario. So you have a positive element to that. The second thing that we emphasize is how we build. So we build as a nation. We build, first and foremost, thinking about workers. So the message to Canadians has been, we are going to create not hundreds of thousands of jobs, but hundreds of thousands of careers in the skilled trades and other skilled areas, and setting up in parallel with major projects and investments, apprenticeships, skilled training, so that Canadians are ready to take advantage of that. Last point, we have historic issues that are current issues in terms of reconciliation with Indigenous Canadians, Indigenous peoples, and the nature of the major investments we're doing is that there will always be Indigenous participation in the equity, in the ownership, in the building. So it's a progressive element, thinking back into workers and being inclusive with all groups in society with a core positive message on build. People want and deserve that positive agenda, so it's not engaging on the turf of the more negative agenda, but focusing on the positive.
Thank you so much for that. We're going to return to the theme of rebuilding. But Prime Minister Albanese, in your time in office, you had a historic election, really one of the first times in a long time, re-elected. And how are you seeing this year? How are you meeting the needs of your constituents, of Australians, in this time of rapid change globally?
A big contrast in our campaign, I think, was we had a positive agenda. And there were two themes we kept going back to make a positive difference to people's lives. No one held back and no one left behind. So no one left behind, that a Labor government will always look after the vulnerable, will look after people on issues like gender equity. What we'd done was to, for example, real wages increasing. We've had, every year we've been in office, the minimum wage has been increased at a level at least or higher than inflation. So we've seen wages share of GDP go up for the first time in a long while, for example. We have, since the election, protected penalty rates. We have introduced superannuation to paid parental leave, and we're extending that out to 6 months paid parental leave. And we have that agenda in terms of equity, but no one held back is about aspiration as well. Progressive parties have to be the party of success as well. So engagement with business, engagement with job creation, new industries. How do we seize the opportunities from the clean energy transformation to create new industries, new jobs, as well as enhance blue-collar jobs which are there as well. So we have an agenda, a Future Made in Australia agenda, which is about value-adding, not just digging things up, resources, which has been a traditional strength, and exporting them, but how do we value-add in Australia, create those blue-collar jobs, so it's connected up as well with skills and training and high-value jobs to give people that opportunity. So that really is an overall theme around, and then we match that up with policies including particularly strengthening our healthcare system. Our Medicare system is very important. That was front and centre in the campaign. People trust us. They know that we are a party that believe in healthcare through just having your Medicare card, a universal health system. And our opponents really went back into grievance and we were able to point towards as well economic management. We produced 2 budget surpluses in our first term, the first time that had happened for a couple of decades. So we also emphasised the progressive patriotism idea as well, that we could go the Australian way. We didn't need to look to others for a pattern. We wanted to stand up for our own national interest, and that meant engagement in our region as well.
Thank you so much. We will also return to the discussion of progressive patriotism, but I wanted to ask you, Madam Prime Minister, in your time in office, how are you seeing meeting this moment for the people of Iceland?
So I guess it's different when you come into government having been in opposition before, because a big part of what you're doing, especially because since I took over the party, there was a big shift in sort of focus. We went back to core social democracy, focus on housing, economy, not trying to run after identity politics. But I mean, a core in our messaging coming into government is delivery relatively quickly. I mean, to be honest, I mean, the voter out there knows, they're smart, they understand that hard, structural changes, they take time. But there are moments, I think, where you can prove that you're there for the right reasons. I mean, we already put together a ministerial committee, for example, to revamp the building of nursing homes, and we just put people in a room and we didn't let them leave until they figured it out. And there were all these issues between the municipalities, between the government, between private companies, where somebody had got pissed off or something had got stuck in the system and they just allowed it to get that way. And so we managed to push that off and get that going pretty quickly. I will say we did also have a good moment, which I think really strengthened the government, which is that even though we campaigned on these bread and butter economic policy welfare issues, there has been a historical struggle in Iceland when it comes to our resources, especially our fisheries. We have a very profitable fisheries system, but the quota holders, they've retained much of the resource rents, and a large proportion of our citizens find this an unfair situation to be in. And so one of the first things we did was raise the resource rents, and we pushed for a new bill in Parliament, and we ended up getting filibustered by the opposition, not for days, but for weeks. And we stuck with it. And it led us to leave behind certain other things that we couldn't follow through on, but we stuck with it, and we ended up actually breaking up the filibuster with what some have called a nuclear button that we have in Parliament, but I would say is a democracy button, because the opposition is supposed to have an opinion, not to govern the country. And I think people thought we wouldn't do it. And it set an example that we were able to fulfill something in our first 6 months. So if you can deliver on a few things and people see that you have your heart in the right place and you're willing to go against that type of opposition, I think it gave a lot of people hope.
Prime Minister Starmer, thank you again for your remarks. And really, many countries around the world are facing a situation where there's a real rise of right-wing populism, and in some of the centrist parties, even centrist-right parties, are kind of falling away. In this context, how does the center-left, how do progressives meet the moment and actually capture a strong majority?
Well, I think for us, the context, certainly for the last election, was an electorate, a public, who, since the 2008 crash, hadn't seen their living wages, their living standards rise for many, many years, totally flat. Their public services had got worse and worse to the point of decimation. And there'd been a massive drop-off in trust in politics for a whole bunch of reasons. So this led to quite a strong sense of disenchantment. And if you think about the 2008 crash to last year, that's 16 years. So anyone who was maybe in their 20s, late 20s, would have gone through to their early 40s not feeling they were materially progressing in the way that they would have expected in their lives, not seeing their public services fit for purpose, and losing faith in politics as an answer to that. That's why the change slogan that we had at the election